Welcome to the Whissel Way podcast. My name is Kyle Whissel, your host with eXp Realty in San Diego. Today, I got a special guest on here, Robby Butler with YStreet Capital. We're going to be talking about funds and syndications and passive real estate investing. So I'm super excited to dive in. Before we do, if you ever have a question you want to have us answer on the show, you can always go to thewhisselway.com. You can ask us questions on there. Subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel. You can join our referral network for all the people that are leaving California. And if you want to get some tips and tricks of what we're doing inside our $600+ million team here in San Diego, you can get on our email newsletter as well as our private Facebook group where we share a lot of what we're working on internally. Lastly, if you're looking to level up your content creation game, whether it be audio, video, social, we can help you out there as well. You can check out the Media Mayor Mastermind course, all at thewhisselway.com. Cool, Robby, I'm excited to jump in today. If you can, give us a little scope on what is YStreet Capital and what's your role in the company?
Great. Happy to be here. So YStreet Capital is an institutional developer of multifamily, self-storage, and we do some raw land development as well. What that means literally is we find the dirt that either no one wants or that we see immense value in, that some marketplace is demanding some product that's not there, and we go and build it. So we do that across North America. Really, that means Canada and the United States. We're in probably 13 states in the union right now, as well as some select sites in Canada. And I take care of all of our investors across the spectrum, whether they're Canadian, US, international. I bring all of them in, listen to their goals, and find the projects for them.
Very cool, man. So the reason I wanted to bring this up, something I've found recently is that most of our audience is real estate agents or people in the real estate industry. And the majority of people that are in the real estate industry didn't start in the real estate industry. There's very few people who graduate college or graduate high school and are like, I'm going to be a realtor. This doesn't happen a lot. Most people that get into real estate come from some sort of traditional 9-to-5 type job, a lot of times from corporate America, and they leave that job. They get into real estate because they want more freedom, right? They're sick of being in the 9-to-5 rat race. They get into real estate, they want more freedom, which is great because real estate does provide that freedom. So they're not wrong. But one of the things that they fail to take advantage of is that when they were at that corporate job, a lot of times they built up some sort of a 401k, they built up some sort of an IRA, and they just kind of forget about it. They just leave it there and they're like, hey, I got all this money. Some of it was their own money. Some of it was probably via a corporate match. And so they just assume it's kind of just like free money and it just sits there and like, well, it's growing, so why mess with it? But statistically, the average 401k or IRA, at least what I pulled from GPT, says that those are earning like 5 to 8%, which, hey, that's not bad. 5 to 8% is not terrible, right? If you're earning 8% over like a 9-year period, you'll double your money. So that's not terrible, but you could do so much better with that. And what's funny is that it's like, you could take that money, you could put that into a self-directed IRA, and then you could invest it into real estate, which is like the thing that us realtors know better than anybody. But we're foolishly leaving it behind in this old retirement fund. And so if you're watching this, like, one, you need to get your money out 5 to 8%. You're better than that. You can do more with that. Now, some of you might say like, yeah, but I just don't have the time. I'm so focused on my clients. And that's why I wanted to bring Robby on here, is that there's the ability to take that money out of that old 401k or IRA and put it into a real estate investment, but do it in a more passive way. And so when you take money and you want to invest in real estate passively, two of the best ways to do that are via syndications and via funds. And so being that Robby and YStreet Capital do a little bit of both of these, I wanted him to come on here today to kind of help you guys understand the differences between the two and kind of compare and contrast, so that if you are looking to get out of that 5 to 8% return and do something more with it, you have a better idea of what those options are. So Robby, let's just kind of break down what's a syndication and what's a fund. Let's start there, and then we can dive into a little bit more of the differences between them.
Sure. Syndication exists as a legal term first. And so skipping over the jargon, what it is taking pieces of a massive project and cutting them up like slices of a pie and distributing them to different investors. It's Diversified ownership. Think of it like if you're in San Diego and you're buying into a condo, well, you're one of the condo owners in a condo association. But in this case, we're talking investments. We're not talking where you're living. We're not talking you have to come and manage it for 1/12 of the year. You're just an owner and that's it. So that's a syndication. Technically, syndication is the whole umbrella. And a fund is a piece or a type of syndication. A fund says, all right, not only are you going to own a slice of one project, you're going to own a slice of numerous projects, all of them contained in the fund. So the pie slicing analogy is an easy way to think about it, but the fund is slices of tons of pies, and the syndication, or let's call it a direct deal, an individual syndication is a slice of one pie. You know where it is. You can travel to it. The fund's everywhere.
Okay, so let's talk about why would somebody want to go the syndication route? What are the pros of going the syndication route?
Sure. The pros in general are things like you can go and see that asset. If you say, I'd like to invest in Boise, I'd like to invest in Philadelphia, I'd like to invest in Arizona, you can go drive there and say, all right, I'm looking at this direct deal, and you can check it yourself. You can talk with the property manager. You can get the rent rolls from the general partner, which is someone like YStreet Capital. It's a literal deal you can go and study directly, and you can check their math. You can say, do I really believe in the thesis for this specific asset? Whereas a fund, a little different, a little harder to do. But when you're on the syndication standpoint, when you're looking at a direct deal, you know exactly what you're getting into, come all the good and all the bad. Let's say a property has a challenge. Well, you know that challenge because you can drive there and see it yourself. Perhaps it's a lot of rainwater. Perhaps it's a market is a little more depressed than it should be. You understand that because you're literally looking at it.
Awesome. Okay, so then let's flip over to the fund route. What's the reason somebody would say, you know what, let's not go the syndication route. I want to go the fund route. What are the positives there?
Generally, people like removing the single asset risk, the very thing that also allows a syndication to be very good. Hey, a property could go amazing. Well, a fund allows you to say, all right, I've got all these different options, so I'm spread out. If one property has a hard time, that's okay because I've got 3-5 others that are doing fantastically, and so it balances out. It's thinking about it more as a market rather than a direct deal. And the benefit of thinking about it as the market is that it generally tracks with the market. So, for example, the funds we run, we're very confident in how they're going to perform because we've done them before, and we can look back and say, because Fund 1 did this, Fund 2 is going to do very similarly. So it has a little bit more of a balance, and some people like that.
Got it. And it's just that whole diversification thing, right? Like if you did a syndication that is in, Florida, where hurricanes have just been hitting year after year after year, one, hopefully your building wasn't hit by one of those hurricanes. Right. But even if it wasn't hit, the cost of insurance on those buildings, right, is through the freaking roof. And a lot of times the person doing that syndication might not have been prepared for the massive increase in insurance costs, and it busts that deal. Whereas in the fund route, you could be spread across 10 deals. So, hey, maybe that does happen to one of your deals, but there's 9 other ones to kind of offset it.
There are always, this goes back to the individual investor goals, but when an individual investor is saying, I just want to own some real estate, that person is almost always a good fit for a fund, at least first. Whereas if someone says, I want to own this specific type of asset in this specific market with this specific return profile, and I only want to pay this amount of fees on top, that's a direct deal person, and I hear it in their voice the moment they pick up the phone.
That's somebody like, I want to own multifamily in Las Vegas because they're building a stadium there and I believe in Las Vegas. Like a direct dealer, a syndication might be a good fit for them. Whereas somebody says like, I believe in storage. I think storage is a great place. I'm just not sure like where I want to be, but I know I want to be in storage. Then they can spread it out.
Right. So your agents know the closing line. So if I could show you a storage fund that allowed you to have all of the assets and all of the markets you could envision and none of the downsides of just one of them, would you be interested? Same strategy.
Awesome. So the thing that we talked about is these things are passive. What does that really mean?
Sure. What that means, so actually I do like thinking about this from the business owner standpoint. Each of your agents perhaps has their client list. They've got their tools about how they work with their specific client base and their market. You're a business owner. A business owner produces cash flow. That's why you have a business. Investing allows you to keep that. It keeps the net worth stable. It allows you to control your wealth in a larger manner. But investing is a whole different skill set. And so the passive piece allows the professionals to do the active work, which is us, people who have degrees in finance. They have been doing real estate investments for 20, 30, 50 years. They're the professionals doing the active work. And the passive investors come behind them. They say, I generally believe in storage. I generally believe that the US needs more housing. I generally believe these things, but I do not want to go and add another job to my plate. I don't want to go and buy this multifamily asset myself. I don't want to build storage in my backyard. I want someone else to do that part, but I believe in real estate, so I'm interested in owning it. And that allows you to be passive, watching over the professional's shoulder as the professional works. And that is where a group like us loves to do what we do. When we have a client that understands the basics but doesn't want to get into the weeds beyond a certain point, that's what we do professionally.
Awesome. And so I know one of the things, if somebody wants to get into really either of these, syndication route or fund route, oftentimes there's a term called accredited that gets brought up. So how does that work?
Sure. Accreditation, most people have no concept of this rule that is out there that requires most investors who are going to invest in private placements, which is what we offer, to have either $200,000 a year of annual income for the last 2 years or $1 million net worth, excluding their personal residence. It's an A-B, either or solution that you have to have. We have to prove that to the Securities and Exchange Commission that we are checking that our investors have got this baseline of liquidity and net worth and sufficient financial experience to have that. Now, of course, you and I both know that doesn't really great experience. It doesn't really tell you anything about an investor, but it's the rules and we play by them very, very seriously. So an investor has to have that income level or that net worth, which, by the way, is excluding their personal residence. And once they are, it's open season. Any advertised private placement you can get into. I'll tell you, Kyle, there is a way around that, which is called the 506B exemption, that allows for non-accredited investors to have opportunities like this, but they're harder to find. You have to have a relationship with the group beforehand. So when I find a non-accredited investor, we have a conversation, we put them on a list, and when we're going to release a non-accredited investment, I call those people first. I say, before we advertise this and remove your ability to invest now, are you interested? So both are possible. One is much harder.
What are typical minimums to get into an investment like this?
Great question. They range anywhere from $5,000 to $50 million and more. And I'm not joking. It's a range. Our minimums are $100,000. They go up on an annual basis. We generally let investors know up front, but you can find them anywhere generally in the heavy 5-figure to 6-figure range for most private placements. That's kind of the mean on the scale.
And what's the reason, like for you guys, why would you want to have a minimum?
It's a great question. It's because we value the work we do and we know that other people have to be able to not only handle what we're doing, but they also understand money well enough that they've earned some level of ability to place it. So it's a general thinking process that says a real estate investor has got to have some capital. Beyond that, they've got to have additional capital beyond it in case there are things like they have to handle in their personal life. We can't, for example, give you back your money when it's tied up into a real estate project. So those are the basic things that allow for some early due diligence. But equally, when you have a quality sponsor, they want to know that you're equally invested with them. So we want someone to say, yeah, we're committed. We're going to put our $100,000 to work because you're doing the same.
Got it. So what I would love to do is let's talk about like some of the key terms when somebody's analyzing one of these deals. And rather than just saying the terms, I know there's a storage project that we're working on together. So let's kind of go over that project. We'll just use that as an example. So what are like the key terms? If I'm a new investor and I'm analyzing a deal, like what are the terms that I should be looking at, and kind of what are the ranges of what you see out there in regards to those terms?
So there are financial terms and there are legal terms. And again, that's why most people don't want to do this professionally. But when you get access to them, some financial terms as an example, internal rate of return, IRR, technical metric, more complicated than a basic return. But what it means is it's a financial calculation to estimate how much you're going to make per year when you understand the whole time period. So IRRs can range everywhere from 5% per year to 25% to more. They follow the type of property you're investing in. Most of what we do is about 20% IRR per year. 20% per year. If you exclude the complicated definition of IRR, that's what you get.
This is a little better than 5 to 8%, right?
A little better.
That's what's so crazy to me, man, is that people have this money just sitting at 5 to 8%. And they're real estate people.
Yep.
And they could just move it over and get, 15, 20, whatever. And it's just sitting there. It's like, what are we doing, guys? Like, real estate. Why would you not have your money in real estate? Why do you want it in like mutual funds? Like, it's crazy to me.
What blows my mind is that someone who's working with a real estate agent who's also investing their own money in real estate, that they know that real estate agent understands their product. They understand investment. They understand purchasing and selling homes. So what that does for someone's experience and positioning is significant. You say, oh, I also own some self-storage and I'm a passive investor in these projects. And that's a huge calling card when someone's working with an agent. We were talking terms. Cash on cash return is a familiar one. I mentioned IRR. Another financial term out there is the tax benefits. And so you typically get bonus depreciation. And most real estate agents are somewhat familiar with that. But it really comes to play when you are real estate professional status and can invest in a passive deal and get the tax benefits off of your active income. Huge bonus. So longer podcast for later, but that's another one to think about when people are making their investment decisions.
Well, we'll come back to it, but sidebar, Trump got elected. One of the proposals in his tax plan was to bring back 100% bonus depreciation. You believe it's going to happen? And if so, not that I'm holding you to this, but do you think it'll happen in 25?
I do.
Okay.
I absolutely do. Bonus depreciation always ekes its way away and then returns. And it's done that similar to the 1031 exchange laws for decades. It ekes away and returns, ekes away and returns. So I believe it will come back and you can hold me to it.
Yeah, guys, if you're watching this and you don't fully understand depreciation, that's probably a whole nother podcast to go deep on depreciation, or you can just connect with Robby, who knows it inside and out. If you do not understand depreciation, it is one of the main ways that wealthy people mitigate paying income taxes legally. Personally, I take advantage of 7 figures a year worth of depreciation. It's one of the biggest ways that I cancel out a lot of my income is via real estate investment and the depreciation that comes along with it. And so the fact that, in a fund, in a syndication, a lot of times there's going to be not only a return on the investment, but also some depreciation that's going to come along with it. It's a no-brainer.
Yep. I was talking terms. Shall we go to a few legal terms?
Yeah, let's go for it.
We'll be brief on this one. No one has this much fun on the legal side, but you'll have to approve some documents when you are making an investment, just like buying a home. You'll have to do some signing, and that signing or document approval covers the offering agreement, the private placement memorandum, and the subscription agreement. That's basically who's the company, what are you investing in, soup to nuts, all the details. That's the private placement memorandum. And then the subscription agreement is what are you buying and what is the thing you'll get to keep. And those documents can be fairly lengthy, but when you understand that, that's everything you need to know on the legal side. Yet you will see them. And if you don't, you should be very concerned about your syndication.
Yeah, that would be terrifying. If somebody's pitching you on something, they don't have any of this put together, that might be a red flag. Might want to look into that. Yep. So this particular storage fund, let's attach some numbers to a specific deal. Talk to me about this fund.
Our storage fund is designed to develop and acquire across secondary markets in the United States. Our focus is on 3 types of storage. That's retail self-storage, what you're familiar with, cardboard boxes stacked to the ceiling. Contractor yards, where industrial businesses, people who have forklifts or trailers, park and store RVs or things of that nature on the site. And then finally, we have actual RV storage, which is a formal product for when you want to preserve your boat, preserve your Airstream that you only drive once a year. So those three different types of storage are what we include in our storage fund. Financially, 20% annual return on investment. There's another financial term I'll throw out here called the preferred return. What it means is that an investor will get 8% per year preferred no matter what. So what that looks like is no matter who else is involved, such as us, such as yourself, the investors will make 8% per year before anyone else makes any money. And so that's our way of saying we're committed to the investors first, and this is what they get. So 8% preferred return, 20% overall return on investment when you look at everything that happens, and a 5-year term is what we say the storage fund will be. So you're in 2024, you're out in 2029, and you'll realize 20% per year.
Yeah, not too shabby, huh?
Not too shabby. And it's
Or we
not
could
our
just
first rodeo.
Yeah, or we could keep it. You know, the other thing that mistake, there's the old retirement funds. The other one that I see people make the mistake on a lot is they have a ton of equity in their property. And people brag like, oh, I've got this thing paid off, like 75% of this house paid off. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. But that equity could go to work for you.
Yep.
And so it's like, yeah, that's great that you're not paying any interest on that equity. But even if today's rate's 7%, if you had that money and took it out of equity that you're paying 7% on, and you invested into something that's giving you a 20% return, like the hedge on that's like a 13% arbitrage there. Like it's crazy to me how many people brag about sitting on equity. Like invest that freaking equity. Guys, we're all in real estate. Like we know and whether you do a syndication, a fund, you do flips, like you can do way better than 7%, right? Because that's about what your interest rate is. That's what you're technically saving yourself versus if you took that money out. So I'm such a big fan of putting money to work. Like the way I think about it is like every dollar I have in the bank and every dollar I have of equity, those are all employees. And if they're sitting in my bank account or they're sitting in equity, those are the unemployment lines. And like, I got to get those dollars to work for me. And so I'm all about finding like, is there an opportunity, right? If I took this money out, what could I do with this? And if I could get 20% versus 7%, that's a pretty freaking good return.
I've always said, to agree with you exactly, real estate is the best blend between investing and entrepreneurship that there is. But if you're already a real estate entrepreneur, helping people buy their homes, helping people buy vacation homes, and you don't want to also become a real estate investor, find a way to do it through someone else. The who, not how is so cliche, and yet it is so relevant. Find the who if you're not going to know the how of investing.
So the last question, just because a lot of this audience is real estate agents, they're familiar with 1031 exchanges. Is there the ability to 1031 into something like this, 1031 out of it? How does that look?
In certain deals, there are. In your and my storage fund, unfortunately, there's not. And I could talk to you forever about why not. But in certain opportunities, you can 1031 into a private placement, live in there for the time period of the investment, and 1031 right out. In fact, today we closed about 4 investors on a 1031 investment into an opportunity in, I think, Boise, Idaho. I mentioned Boise earlier. That's probably why. 1031s are available at certain times for certain circumstances. Great way to perhaps say, I don't want to actively manage my rentals anymore. 1031 into a syndication, live there for a while, and then 1031 into the next one. It's a great business plan.
Yeah, where I see that a lot is people that are active investors in something, right? They have a rental property, or especially so many people did short-term rentals over COVID, and the returns aren't anywhere near what they thought. The headache is way more than they thought. And they're just like, I want to get the hell out of this thing. Like, I do not want to do this anymore. And so it's perfect for that person, right? Or you just have general tenants, right? And you're a traditional rental property. If you want to get away from the tenants, the toilets, the trash, all those headaches, you could 1031 out and then roll in, right? In Robby and YStreet, they have all kinds of different projects, coming and going. So something where it can connect you with Robby and you could talk to him and to see what they have at that particular time. But that could get you out of something that requires you to be super active and deal with a lot of headaches and get into something that's a lot more passive and still get a good return on that investment.
We're big on education. So when someone comes to us and says, all right, I need the detail, and admittedly, this is not most real estate agents because most of you understand what you're doing. But when someone says, I want all the detail, we go, great. get your reading glasses out because it'll be an effort, but we will walk you all the way to the finish line. And there are opportunities out there that people mostly cannot conceive of that they can accomplish when they know the right team. You mentioned tax benefits. That's an easy one. Imagine 1031ing for 10 years and never seeing the tax man again. That's an opportunity totally available.
Yeah. So, I mean, between depreciation, between 1031 exchanges, like when you start comboing all of this stuff together, like this is how people build wealth. This is how, especially people that have a heavy real estate knowledge, really get to hack the system, right? And take advantage of it to their, to their benefit. So guys, if you're watching this video, like if you're interested, you want to learn more about the syndications, the funds, you want to talk about this particular storage fund Robby mentioned, just reach out, shoot me a DM on Instagram at Kyle Whissel. I'll connect you with Robby, the whole team over at YStreet. You can explore their offerings, or if you just want to get some opinions on stuff, happy to chat with you and talk about those opportunities and just provide a little education just to make sure that you're doing what's best for you, doing what's best for your family, and really putting that money to work. So, Robby, thank you so much for being on today. I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of real estate people reach out that want to put their money to work. So thank you so much for being on here. And guys, if you got value out of the episode today, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. Let YouTube know. If you have a question, you can throw it. Obviously, don't put confidential questions in the comment section. Send me a DM at Kyle Whissel for the confidential stuff. But if you just have a general question, you can throw it in the comment section. I'll make sure to get a response to you. And then if you want more of our content, hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell. YouTube will take care of the rest. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, if you got value today, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and hook us up with a review. I don't care if you just hit the 5-star button, you write a review, or both. I love you either way. With that said, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Whissel Way podcast. We'll see you next time.